Today we're getting under the hood with Dixie Lincoln-Nichols, a mother, daughter, sister, science and health educator with over 25 years of experience, an entrepreneur, consultant, and a passionate advocate for women's wellness. She holds an MSEd in teaching and learning, and her love, passion, and expertise have led her to partner with several wellness and lifestyle brands. Dixie is a Qigong instructor and an innovative founder of a former award-winning indie beauty and wellness retailer. Dixie is also the co-founder of Life in the Pause, a platform with a mission to transform the menopause journey into an empowered and celebrated experience. She is committed to fostering nurturing experiences and safe spaces that provide support and optimize the well-being of women navigating menopause and the aging continuum. Her work not only highlights the importance of integrative and holistic health, but also celebrates this pivotal menopausal life stage, building a community where women can feel seen, heard, and cared for, and thrive in their full authenticity and vitality. In recognition of her contributions to health and well-being, Dixie has received numerous citations from the New York City Board of Education, the New York State Assembly, and the Council of the City of New York, and her work has been featured in media outlets like Oprah Daily, Essence, Women's Health, WFMZ, and PBS, to name a few. Dixie also serves on the board of Martin Luther King, Coretta Scott King Memorial Foundation, Pennsylvania, further solidifying her impact and commitment to uplifting communities. Wow, welcome, Dixie.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. That was a mouthful.
Well, you have a wonderful story, and I'm so excited to be getting under the hood with you today. If it's okay, can we get going?
Let's do it.
Wonderful. So I love asking this question because every woman has their own unique experience. But what was that inflection point that really got you into the health and wellness space?
I cannot remember a time in my life when I have not loved health and wellness. And I contribute that to my upbringing with my grandmother, whom I refer to as a bush doctor. And that's because we grew up in Trinidad and Tobago in a very small village with about 300 people, still about that to date. And we didn't have access to large medical facilities at the time. And we had what, again, I refer to as a Garden of Eden, fruits and herbs galore all around us. And my mom, my grandmother, as well as the other elders and people in the village utilized nature for well-being. So if you had thrush, there was something for thrush. If you had a cold, there was a medicine for the cold. If you had a rash on your skin, there was a medicine. In fact, my grandmother taught me how to extract coconut oil on the stovetop when I was 6 years old. And we used that for our skin. And it's a staple. Even to this day, my sister, whose youngest daughter is a year and a half, she's like, Granny, when you're coming, bring me some coconut oil. And Granny still extracts to this day. And so we used it. We would incorporate sugar in it to exfoliate the skin. So those were the early days that I had in terms of my proximity to health and well-being. And that carried through with me. I wanted to go to medical school. And so it was just something organic for me, something natural that progressed and attached itself to me all throughout my life. And I have to say, I have always loved it and I still love it. And I think I will continue to love it for the rest of my life. Health and wellness is, like they say, is my jam.
I don't recall at what age you came from Trinidad to the US. Like, what was your journey like as you left that community with some of those practices that you witnessed as a child to what you now do as an adult? What was the journey like?
It was fascinating. I was always curious. I was always a curious child. I'm still a curious adult. I'm always learning, always investigating. Hence the reason I love science and I studied science in school. Leaving my grandmother's home when I was about 11 years old to live with my mom was kind of eye-opening because my mom lived in the city, whereas my grandmother lived in the countryside. But there I began to see the world with new eyes and the possibilities. We didn't look at television in the countryside. it was just not a thing. We read and we sang and we played outdoors. With my mom, we got to look at TV. And so my dad was a kung fu fan. I mean, we looked at every kung fu movie in the video store. And that's where I got my first lesson in meditation. I was about 7 because we would go visit my mom during the holidays. And I looked at a kung fu movie and I saw meditation. And I tell you, it just transformed me. I was like, what is that? You know, the monks were sitting on bamboos with their hands to their hearts and they were praying and the stillness and the wind was blowing. And I was just so taken aback. So even when I left from my grandmother to go to my mom, there was something else that further solidified my love for well-being. And so it continued on. And I said, I've got to learn how to do this. Because we were introduced to television, my perspective of the world started to broaden. And then I started having these visions of living in the United States of America. So come, I'm a manifester, by the way. I manifest things. And I wanted to go to NYU. I had this catalog I was walking around with. And then we migrated to the United States when I was 17 years old. And from there, you know, I just like, oh my God, what is this place? All these new feelings, experiences. But I have to say, having my daughter I had my daughter at 19, and that sort of set me back a bit, but I didn't allow it to deter me. I continued to manifest what I wanted for my life and ended up on a scholarship to New York University, the school that I used to carry around that book in my bag. Never saw the school before, and people would ask me, well, where are you planning to go to college? And I'm like, New York University. Mind you, I know nothing about the school other than what I saw in the catalog. And I ended up there, studied science there, then went on to the University of Delaware, studied science there, and then started teaching health and biology and chemistry on the high school level, and left that for a self-care sabbatical 12 years ago, just to really pour into myself. Had me an eat, pray, love moment, and went out into the world to just nurture myself, nourish myself, because mothering from 19 is not an easy feat. But then I started to have an awakening. And again, all of those practices, all of the health and wellness that I had acquired, the skills that I had acquired, the mindsets that I had acquired over the years, I just started to draw from that and learn more on top of that. And it's led me to where I am now, just a fierce advocate for health and well-being, and now specifically for well-aging. So again, this lifestyle has been a continuous for me. It's evolved, it's grown, it's changed, but it's ever present in my life, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
For you to continue to be doing these practices for several decades is really quite something. And I think the fact that you have that inherent desire, wellness, well-being at your core is just really amazing. And back to that comment around you being a manifester, the manifesting the school that you wanted, but manifesting, seeing this and going back and doing it is really, what do you think the impetus, like, yes, this is in you, but like, what drives you? What drove you at that young age?
It has to be love. It has to be the love for it. There's nothing else that I love to do as much as I love to do this. And I've tried many things. I'm multifaceted, multi-skilled, multi-talented. There are many things I can do. I can build a website. I can make beauty and wellness products. I can do so much, but this love for health and well-being and being aligned with that is something that I cannot explain. It just will not go away. And I'm not trying to let it go away. I want it here. I want it with me. I want to teach others. But I really feel that if I did not love this, well, I don't feel it. I know it. If I did not love this, I would not be doing it. And there is nothing else I can say in terms of why I continue to do it. I love it. It makes me feel good. And I feel like it's my gift. I feel everyone is born with a gift. And this is my gift. This is what I've been given. This is my ministry. And so I stay within this space. I don't question it anymore. I just figure out how can I best utilize this for my well-being and for the good of others who would like to be supported.
How are you using these incredible modalities and practices that you yourself do? How are you bringing that into the community?
Well, that's a good question. Well, currently I'm teaching. I have a course that I just finished taught, my first iteration of it called the Menopause Lab. And within that lab, I'm teaching people the basics of menopause, things that every woman should know, and also things that people who want to support them should know, right? So what is menopause? What is perimenopause? What are some of the symptoms, when they should go to the doctor? What are some nutritional things that they should be doing? How they should incorporate restorative practices into their lives? How they should incorporate, how they should optimize their relationships during menopause, whether it's a relationship with self, relationships with loved ones, with colleagues, with coworkers, what have you. So it's a very extensive course that touches on necessary pillars and foundational aspects that can give someone a very holistic and well view and experience of the menopause experience, the menopause continuum. I'm also currently consulting. So I work with different companies and different brands and we talk about aging, how women are aging currently. What does that look like? Because the way Gen Xers are aging is very different for much of how bloomers aged, right? We've sort of shifted the paradigm. We're moving into this renaissance where we appreciate who we are. We're not falling for the hokey doke that we are wallpaper and we should just sit back and do nothing with ourselves. We have things to say, we have things to do, and we are most certainly going to do them. So having these conversations with companies who want to understand where women are now is incredibly important. So I've worked with a couple of brands like Seish, that's owned by Allison Felix. I've worked with most recently Rootless Bites. They had an amazing campaign around menopause and owning your phase and what that looks like and being authentic about the experience as opposed to being fettered to shame and not wanting to speak about the experience. I've also worked with Travelocity and a couple of other companies around well aging and the experiences that well aging has, right? I mean, because the experience for everyone is different, but they want to know, what do you think well aging is? What does it look like for you? And for me, it's all about lifestyle. It's not just one thing. It's about the foods you eat. It's about how you move your body. It's about the relationships that you have. It's about you being your authentic and most truthful self and being able to express yourself truly and freely without this fear that you are going to be judged. And that's difficult, right? So, and I'm also sitting on the board where the Martin Luther King, Coretta Scott King Memorial Project, where we do a lot of health and wellness workshops within our communities, bringing wellness, educating the community around health and wellness, not just in the menopause space, but overall. Life in the Pause is also a new passion of mine. My business partner, Monique, and we created this platform to empower women around menopause and to sort of shift the experience that we were having. We wanted to be a phase of celebration, not just the constant, oh, it's horrible, oh, it's hard, oh, it's impossible, oh, it's all the negative things. It is for a lot of women, but it's also a beautiful, enlightening, uplifting, transformative experience. And putting some focus on that, shining some light on that for us is important. We love to dance. We love to go out. We love to do all the things that we loved to do when we were younger, maybe in a different way, but we still love to do those things. And we want women to know, and people who are experiencing menopause, that you should give yourself permission to do these things. You should give yourself permission to celebrate, have rituals around menopause, invite menopause in and see where it leads you. Invite the transition, invite the change, lean into it and see where life leads you. So yeah, those are just some of the things that I'm doing with my resources and what I've gained along the way.
What I love is the positivity that you bring, and of course the practices, the modalities that you bring. So I think that's awesome. Can you share a little bit? I know that you're going to have this celebration in the fall around Menopause Awareness Month. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think it would be great for the audience to know.
Absolutely. So Life in the Pause is entering its second year with our second event in New York City. So this is happening on October the 5th of 2024 during World Menopause Month. And we're going to have vendors, we're going to have speakers, we're going to have breakout sessions, and it's going to be a day of fun. I mean, fun and joy is super important for us. So it's not just going to be education. It's not just going to be community. It's also going to be celebratory. We're celebrating ourselves. The fact that we are able to experience this transition in life, for me, is a blessing. But we also want people to be blessed with information, with good information, so that they can utilize these for their own well-being as they age and as they move into the next phase of their lives. So some people might be in perimenopause, some people are going to be in postmenopause, but whatever stage people are in, there is going to be something for them to take away from that event. So I encourage people to come on out, grab your girlfriend, grab your sister, grab your grandma, auntie, whomever, and come on out and celebrate, be in community, because learning in community is super powerful. And doing this alone is not recommended. Doing it in community is definitely a plus. That's what we recommend, community, not silos.
Oh, I love this whole do it in community. So I want you to elaborate on that. It sounds awesome. And I love the contrast, community versus being alone. And we've had previous conversations. Dixie and I have been talking, and I just think you're so amazing. And one of the things that I took away from you with in one of our conversations is growing up in the community you grew up in. It formed this. So can you talk about that? Because it's so much more than just saying community.
Now, when you grow up in a small village of 300 people, I mean, that itself is community. And that's where community started for me, in this very small space where it was just not my grandmother and my aunts and uncles and cousins. It was the neighbors, and it was the teachers, and it was the elders at church. Everyone contributed to my upbringing. Everyone helped each other. So whether it was helping each other with food or with medical services, they were there for each other. So my grandmother had 11 children, and she gave birth to 11 children and raised 9 because 2 died. But when she had something to do and she couldn't tend to her children herself, there was someone else that she could turn to in the neighborhood. Can you please come and watch my children? Can you take care of them for me? Whether it was a cousin or whether it was a good friend. And I can guarantee you there was always someone there. And so we never had to fend for ourselves. It was never just us. It was never just me. It was never just my grandmother. It was never just her sister or my aunts. It was always them and somebody else, me and somebody else, and others, right, surrounding us and raising us up collectively. And so I have to say, I moved away from that when I came to this country. I think I began to embrace this idea of living in this nuclear unit. And for a long time, I did a lot by myself. It did not feel great at all. And I have this really wonderful friend, and she's a younger friend, and having age gap friendships is so important. Older friends, younger friends, and parallel peers are so important. So my younger friend, she's so great. Her name is Chana Ewing, and she's great at community. And she brought a whole lot of us together during, not a whole lot, but a select group of women together during the pandemic. And she reinforced to me the importance of community, even though I was building community along the way. But she really reinforced to me how important it is for us to work collectively and how much further we can go in mind, body, and spirit if we were to meet each other and share with each other collectively, as opposed to trying to do this alone, as opposed to thinking, I can do alone, I can go alone, I can produce alone. Yes, you can, but imagine the toll that it takes, not just mentally, but also physically, the emotional toll, the physical toll that it takes. But when you're doing community, there is so much more ease. There are so many more minds at work. And collectively, you can do so much, which is why I went into business with a partner. I was like, I am never going into business alone again because two minds are better than one. And if you find the right partner and you find the right community, you can do wonders. And so, whether it's in health, whether it's in finances, whether it's in movement, nutrition, if you can find a community to function from as your springboard and as your fallback, as your everything, I recommend that you just do it because it takes a village.
I think community and coming together is just such a wonderful thing. And I think we might be moving into places where we're seeing more and more of that. My hope is that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I can so
Right.
relate to it.
I just want to say that, like it's a very capitalist concept, right? And when you look at slavery, right, the days of slavery, Black women here in the United States, they had to function in community. It's how they survived. They could not survive alone. Most things were done in community. Of course, there are always going to be people who want to do it on their own because that's how they feel. But for a great number of women, Black women here in the United States, community within this system was integral. It was integral for their survival. It's integral for our survival now. If we want to really thrive and move past survival, we have to do it within communities and we have to be open to supporting and helping genuinely, I should say, genuinely supporting and helping each other.
Moving on with community, I want to go back to the well aging. You're doing this work, you're passionate about it. What I think is interesting about the well aging is it does encompass these life stages of women, which is perimenopause, menopause, and post. But well aging, you're seeing on a greater level. How are you imagining that?
I envision octogenarians and nonagenarians who are healthy and vibrant and independent and loving life. And that is possible, but we have to embrace those possibilities and we have to actively seek ways to make that happen. And so it used to be that once you get to a certain age, everyone sort of forgot about you. And I believe women started forgetting about themselves and forgetting about their dreams and their desires and shelving things that they wanted to do because they felt like I'm at a certain age and that's not for me anymore. No, let's getting rid of those old narratives that we've been programmed with and retraining the mind to be present with whatever it is and then taking action, acknowledging that these are the things that I want to do and then taking action to do these things, whatever they are. And of course, it also comes with education, staying in the know, knowing how to support the body, how to support my life, how to support my relationships with my children, my ever evolving life, because it is continually evolving. So, how to manage the changes with your spouse, because our bodies are changing, how to manage the changes with our children, because they are changing, their presence changes, how to manage changes within the community because friends move away, people in the community move away, and then there is death. There is death. People face and experience death, and that's a huge, hard, painful reality but it's a part of the aging continuum. And as we age, we start losing more and more friends. So all of these things, learning how to manage all of these facets of life is what's going to help an individual to be well, right? Understanding also, and I love to put this one in because I don't want you to forget it. Please have fun, joy, joy, joy. It's such an integral part of life. And as we go older, we deserve to have joy. Whatever phase of life you're in, you deserve to have joy. Have those restorative practices. We have so many out of body experiences every day, and having a practice that brings you back home to yourself, that grounds you and keeps you rooted and centered is incredibly important. So, wellness is attainable. You just simply have to want it and acknowledge that it's something that's important for you. And then again, take that action.
It would be really wonderful if you could share your own wellness practices, because you are such a source of brilliance, of light, of education. So why don't you share with everyone what you do on a given day, a given week, a given month, a given year?
Absolutely. Well, the reason I took my self-care sabbatical 12 years ago was so that I could begin to address my self-care needs. And that Eat, Pray, Love moment led me to that. And so, yes, now I practice what I preach. And there's this saying, it takes 1,000 tries to become good at something. I've had my 1,000 tries. And so rituals are important for me. Self-care rituals are super, super important and ever present in my life. There are so many days when I fall back into old habits, but I'm like, okay, it's fine. What are you going to do to bring yourself forward, to move out of that habit, right? And so Qigong is important for me because it is my go-to restorative practice. It's the practice that optimizes my parasympathetic nervous system, my response to stimuli that's not always the best, right? It's my bring me back to my body practice. And so every morning I wake up, I have a prayer practice and then I have my Qigong practice. I also am very cognizant of what I eat, what I put into my body. I have always been. I am a vegetarian. I grew up in a household with vegetarians. So my grandmother is a vegetarian, my dad was a vegetarian, and I became a vegetarian a long time ago. I also love being in community. I love helping and supporting. So I'm always doing some kind of volunteer work. I'm always volunteering my time. I love to travel. That's important. I love to put things down and not look at it and just go out and pour into myself. I love road trips. I love getting in the car with my husband and driving around the country. We've been to 45 states and we've got 5 more to go to experience. So, I try to do a lot of the things I love. I'm always learning from others who are much more knowledgeable than I am. I'm constantly just finding ways to satisfy my curiosity because I'm very curious, and curiosity is what's led me to where I am, and it will continue leading me to new lessons, and it also led me to unlearning a lot of things that did not serve me. So knowing that I have these practices allows me to just move freely into the world because I know that with these practices I'll be okay. I am okay because when things start falling apart and life starts lifing and I start swaying and bending, I have these practices that grounds and centers me. And so I know I won't break. I won't ever break because these restorative practices restores my soul, restores my spirit, and it gives me the energy that I need to do whatever it is I want to do, whether it's overcome fear or whether it starts something new or whether it's sit down for a whole year and do very little, which is the phase I'm in after closing my business. I decided to take it easy for a year. So my year ends on August the 31st, a year of slowness. I don't know if that's a word, but a year of just taking it slow, right? So you have to have restorative practices to ground and center you, and they are an integral part of my life. Yeah.
Oh, I love how you honor yourself that way. And I think just to be able to say, I'm going to take this year, I'm going to take this sabbatical to and go on a self-care journey. And I think that's a wonderful message like just hearing you share this with women around the world and with people around the world doing these things. The other thing is I love the word ritual, and you've been very fortunate. That's such a blessing because it allowed you to be able to go through each life stage and sort of deal with, to your point, the bends, the sways, but you won't break, you know?
Yeah. And again, it really depends on your action and your acknowledgement. And I think from a young age, I was able to acknowledge that this is something I like and this is something I want to pursue at some point. And then I also had prayer. I grew up in a house where my grandmother was a praying and still is a praying woman, right? And so there was that ritual. And then there was the ritual of going to church every Sabbath. And so from 6 o'clock in the evening, sundown till sunup, Friday till Saturday, we did absolutely nothing because we had to observe the Sabbath. And so even though I'm not in that same place, it was the impetus for rituals for me because I grew up with tons of good rituals, good, healthy rituals. And so rituals became a part of my life and now is a part of my life. And yeah, even menopause. I created a whole ritual around menopause. And I'll tell you this, it's funny how the body is, how the body is so intelligent, it knows what it wants. It was about 3 weeks prior to me going into full menopause on the 23rd of October, 2020. My body just began yearning for something. I was like, I'm not into partying and dancing. I like dancing, but I'll dance on my own with my friends. But I just felt the need to do something. And the urge just began to get stronger and stronger coming toward that 12-month anniversary. And then on the day of my 12-month anniversary for menopause, I call it my menoversary. I got up and I had these rituals. I lit my candle. I did my Palo Santo, my prayer, my Qigong, and then I dressed up, and it was just me alone. And I danced. And I turned on some soca music from, Trinidad, the Caribbean, and I just had a dance fest by myself. I cooked dinner. My husband was home. I had lunch. We ate. And I just had such an amazing day, but it was because of those rituals that I created for myself during that day. And at the end of the day, I felt amazing. And so I wrote a blog sharing some of the rituals women can actually delve into to honor themselves during menopause or when they get to their menoversary or their menopause anniversary, or even after, even if they don't remember, they can still have a ritual to celebrate that time.
I think that's really beautiful, and that's wonderful to share with women. It's just such a positive way to embrace the various transitions in life. So I have two questions left. Well, is there anything else that we haven't talked about? I know that you're with life in the pause and how you're imagining things.
Yeah, I think it's important as people approach perimenopause, as you approach postmenopause, to get educated and to be in alignment with who you are. Be in alignment with who you are. I know there's a lot of information out there from professionals and non-professionals alike, from teachers, from people who want to know. There's just information and it's loud and noisy. The important thing is for you to know what you want and not what other people are telling you that you should do with your body. Think about what that is for you as you navigate this transition. Think of how you want to feel. Think of what you want to put into your body, what you don't want to put into your body, what you're able to cope with and what you're not able to cope with. Be clear about that as you approach your well-being, as you approach modalities for your well-being, and you will find the answer that's for you. And don't be swayed by what's going on out there. There's a lot of amazing information, great information, but know that everything is not for everyone. So be clear and be aligned with who you are, and it will be okay.
That's amazing. And I think you're probably going to build on it now with this last question, which is like, this is your platform to give a message to women of all ages, of all backgrounds, of all cultures. Dixie, what do you want to leave them with today?
I think the importance of communication, because at this stage in my life, I find it to be one of the most important assets that you need to continually amplify and nourish your ability to communicate, because life is changing, the body is changing, society is changing, everything around us is changing. And no one's going to know what you need unless you say, you speak, you are clear about what you need. Not your children, not your spouse, not your coworkers, not your friends. No one will know what you need if you don't say what you need, because your daughter or your children may see your actions and they'll go, oh, she's so melodramatic. Why is she like this? And if you don't say anything, they're not going to know. They'll just simply think you're being melodramatic. If you don't say, well, honey, this is what's happening to me. This is where my body is at. If you don't say this to your partner in an intimate way, hey, this is what's happening to me. This is what I'm going through. This is why there's been this change. Your partner's not going to know, and they will come up with their own perceptions, their own explanations for what you're going through. And that's not going to make you feel good when they start acting in accordance of what they have formulated in their minds about what you are experiencing. So communicate, communicate, communicate. It makes life so much easier, and you will find that so much more is going to open up for you in terms of what you need to help you through this transition. Because during this phase of life, during this transitional menopausal well-aging phase, do need to speak up. Communication is the key.
Because if you don't communicate, you can't be in community. You're kind of alone with things. Dixie, this has been such an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for getting under the hood with me today and sharing your story with women around the world.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It has been a pleasure, always a pleasure talking to you and sharing from my heart, my journey, and what I have learned. Thank you, audience, for listening. I appreciate you all.
Thanks for listening to Under the Sisterhood. If you haven't already, please give us a quick rating and review on Apple or Spotify. And make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn so you can hear from more amazing women. This podcast is created and hosted by Under the Sisterhood LLC and Elizabeth Elfenbein, produced by Elizabeth Elfenbein and Matt Butler, and edited by Matt Butler. The music is by Ayla Schaefer. Her song, Rose.